advising clients across the country. Here he is, your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
All right, welcome. This is Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm Chris Boyd, certified financial planner practitioner, and my office is Asset Management Resources. We're a registered investment advisor firm, and our show is a financial show. We call it Something More because we like to talk about not only those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. And I'm joined today by Jeff Perry. He is an investment advisory representative with Asset Management Resources as well. Jeff, thanks for being with me.
So pleased to be here again, Chris. How's things?
Things are good. Can you believe Father's Day is upon us?
It is tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say I got something in the mail. A little surprise. It was fun. We got a boat this week that came.
Oh, it was delivered. I knew you had one coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that came in the mail?
No.
Wow.
But the kids had a fun gift related to that. That was what's the thing that you drag behind a boat with the bounce
like a tube.
A tube, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tubing, yeah. Tubing is a lot of fun.
So that came as
a gift.
Yeah.
Take us tubing.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Which would be a gift, actually. It would be a gift to take.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be thrilled to have the chance to do that with our family. So, in any case, I had mentioned it. They knew I liked the idea of that we could do that together.
Tubing's a lot of fun.
So anyway, I thought that was pretty observant that they had that because I had mentioned that. So anyway, that's fun.
Great. You know why I like tubing? No skill involved. Just hold on.
You just cling. Hold on for dear life.
And trust the driver.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, should be fun. But Father's Day, if you haven't thought about dear old dad, got a day to get your act together if you need to. But I think of Father's Day usually as a mug, a cap,
tie,
a tie. So I'm kind of like, these are minor, not really a heavy lift for a gift. You know what I mean? If you're doing a gift, you know what I mean?
I'm happy with a card. I'm
thrilled to receive. Dads don't really need a lot of attention for this kind of thing. Don't you think?
No, some fancy new screwdriver or something.
There you go. Yeah. Are you a handy guy, Jeff?
I am. Yeah, I enjoy it. I grew up with my grandfather, who was a mechanic and very handy, and he taught me a lot in my youth, and a lot of it has stuck around. But I often think of him, thinking of Father's Day, I think of him as my father, because I was raised by him.
Your father figure. Yeah.
He was my father figure, and I'll be thinking of him tomorrow more than most days. But yes, I am pretty handy, and it's all thanks to him.
Yeah. I love that. That's very sweet and nice, that, not everyone who is your father figure is always your father. I think that's very true.
Right.
A lot of people, but that's great. I love that. My dad, I loved my dad. He was very present in my life. Not the handiest of guys. So I'm in that camp. Now my brother, he's pretty handy, but he learned it from his father-in-law.
Yeah, see,
a lot of his.
We learn different things from different people, but
yeah. But yeah, my dad's passed, so won't be able to see him. But certainly agree. We'll be thinking of him as well.
Right.
And we won't probably see our kids because they're further away right now, so we'll see them at different times. But one of the things we might get a chance to talk about at some point is some fatherly advice or best advice kind of stuff. So we can come back to that.
Sounds fun. Yep.
While we're talking about Father's Day, I think you mentioned you knew some fun facts about Father's Day.
Well, I always, when we have these holidays, I always like to go and wonder where they came from, history of whatever, and Father's Day. So that I was reading over the past week a couple of things, and so there's always arguments where things originate, but there seems to be some consensus that the history of Father's Day goes back to 1908, when in West Virginia, a pastor gave a sermon in honor of 362 men who had been killed in a coal mining explosion. And the theme of the sermon was not only, in memory of them, but it was to honor our fathers. And so in 1910, June 19th was the first Father's Day in the state of Washington. And then, it didn't become official, like get a proclamation from the president until 1972, when it was finally made, a proclamation that there it is. It's the third Sunday in June. So it's and of course, Mother's Day came first. There's another fun fact.
That's interesting. And of course it's more appropriate, right?
Right. So there's all types of days, but that's what I found out. It seemed to come from that 1908 sermon in West Virginia, honoring the men who were killed and talking about the meaning of fathers.
Yeah, very nice. It's kind of interesting to hear those kind of, the origins like that.
Yeah, you wonder, right? I mean, like, how did it start? I guess my perception was it started because fathers were complaining that mothers got a day.
Where's our day?
Yeah. And then, of course, we actually have a day for everything now, right?
Pretty much.
I mean, yeah. But
what are you referring to?
Well, we have, sometimes we joke about it. We have Financial Planning Day, we have Donut Day, we have Cupcake Day, we have Salsa Day, and it's, of course, they're not as meaningful as celebrating our mothers and fathers, but we do seem to have a day, a week, a month.
What do you got against Salsa Day? I love salsa.
Nothing. I have nothing against any of them.
Or is salsa the dance? I don't know. Anyway. All right, just teasing. Let's move on to probably more substantive things as far as our show is concerned.
Probably.
So, but that being said, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all those father figures that such an important. I think we both, from our personal experience, particularly value that the role of that person in our lives, and it has such an important influence on the direction of one's life and teaching of values and so forth. It's really important.
You make a great point when you think of stepfathers and foster fathers and grandparents who are acting as fathers.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people to celebrate today.
And they play an important role in the formation of character and so forth. So
without a doubt,
and by example, typically we think of men as not being the most communicative, but a lot of times it's not necessarily through words but actions. That
old saying, more is caught than taught.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't heard that one. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, let's talk about what's been happening. There's been some pretty relevant financial news when it come to economics and markets and so forth. Why don't we tap into some of that?
This past week was one no shortage of financial information. I think all eyes were on the Federal Reserve. This week with whether or not they were going to have their 11th increase in 15 months.
Wow.
Or were they going to pause and see how all this tightening and interest rate increases is affecting the economy? And we got to pause. So, meaning no interest rate hike this month. So
I saw in the Wall Street Journal that the Federal Reserve had moved since March 22nd.
Right.
5 percentage points on this short-term Fed funds rate here. That's amazing how fast and how steep that change had been.
Over 10 different hikes.
Yeah. And so this was the first where they were projected not to raise rate hike again. But talk about what was kind of the one of the interesting outcomes of the meeting. It wasn't just the news that they didn't hike. There was also some significant impressions about what to expect.
Some commentary in the minutes and some commentary by Fed Chairman Powell after the announcement. So when Fed Chairman speaks, or anyone speaks about such economic things, they call it dovish or hawkish, right? Dovish is sounding easier, and hawkish is sounding more hard, if you will, more aggressive.
We need
And in
to
this,
tighten more, is hawkish. We need to loosen more kind of
right.
mindset. You're dovish. Okay.
So they paused, as we said, meaning no more rate hikes for now. But his commentary, or the commentary of the Fed, was very hawkish, meaning they were telegraphing that they are likely to have 2 more quarter point hikes in the coming meetings. So we're going to stop, but we're probably going to go up, is the message, which is, I was a little frustrated by that message, I must say. It's tough. It's tough for me to reconcile 3 things. One, it's tough for me to reconcile. We're probably going to go up 2 points, two quarter points, 2 separate times, or another half a point, with we're pausing now to see what happens, and we're data dependent.
Yeah.
How can you say?
I think some of that is it's not so much whether maybe they will go up, but I don't know whether it really is about whether they'll go up as much as they're trying to set expectations that they're not going down. And
because there was that expectation.
Yeah. And so, to give the impression that there still maybe need to go higher. Now, I did see that for the past few months, over the year-over-year data for the PCE, the inflation measure that the Fed is most attuned to, when it came to core inflation, they're still 4.6, 4.7,
Right.
something in that range of inflation rate. So will that come down? Is that data dependent, right? Does that start to diminish? If the Fed wants that to be closer to 2, might be a challenge.
There's a lot there. 2 may not be achievable, right?
Yeah, I think that's very realistic. I think we may be looking at just a different moment in time than what we've enjoyed over the last 20 years or whatever it's been.
I think the pause is totally correct. They've been, as you indicated, 10 rate hikes since March of 22, 5 full percentage points, right? And so there's a lot of lag in those moves, meaning it takes time for the economy, for business to react to those moves. People are refinancing things, or companies are taking out loans to expand or buy new equipment. That doesn't happen the day that the Fed increases rates or decreases, right? It takes time for these things to happen. So taking a pause is totally correct. And we've had a trend down. We've had 8 straight months of inflation reducing on a given month and year over year. So we did have, speaking of that, we had CPI come out, which is the consumer price index. Maybe not the Fed's favorite, but the one I think that most people watch.
Most people are tuned to,
right?
Yeah.
So for May, it was 0.01% up, which is very modest, certainly even below the 2%.
If you analyze that, you're great.
Yep. Yeah. It'd be below expectations, maybe too slow, right?
Yeah, right.
But as you indicated, year over year, it's at 4%. And if you take out food and energy, it's trending 5.3%. There was an anomaly in the May statistics that people are, talking about and arguing about if it's a one-time thing or is it back, is that used car prices were up tremendously in May. For some reason, they had been down. If you remember, months ago, they were up. Like used car prices were actually increasing,
right?
Which has never happened. And then they started going down, but in May they went up again. So we'll have to see if that's a trend, start of a trend, or if it's just kind of an anomaly. And then PPI, Producer Price Index, came out end of the week here, and that was down 0.3% from last month. And the year over year figure is about 2.8% on the producer side, ex food and energy. So
maybe
there's some signs there.
Things to come. Yeah. So I guess the big picture is one that the Fed is still has paused, and that was expected, and that was preferred, right? I think generally we're hoping they would pause, but I think they're either trying to set expectations or create the sense that we're not out of the woods. Inflation's not caught to where they want it to be, and they understand that. So there may be a need to do more. I think it's posturing myself, but what do I know?
Well, what does any of us know? It's all, I don't know if they know.
Yeah, and
So
we'll see what happens.
they
But
are a board of governors, so it's not just the Fed chairman, and they all have different
right.
opinions. They all have votes, etc. So it was a unanimous vote. So it could be. I would even say it's likely that this is compromise.
Yeah,
Pause. Here's some language for you people over here who think we need to
right.
raise
If
again.
we can get a unanimous vote, here's how we'll address it.
Right. So we look like we all agree, but in essence, we're saying three different things.
Yeah, that's very possible. That's very
So,
possible.
well, the market likes it. So the market liked the pause apparently because it's been market's been in a nice upward swing here. So let's see if that's continues.
On an interesting, side note related to that, I happened to catch an article that was in a Morningstar publication, and it was talking about the concentration of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What's driving it up in this
what's
case? Right.
Yeah, and this is not new that we've had this idea of like 5, 10 stocks that really are responsible for the bulk of the move in the market. Um, and it was really interesting to me that well, here's what and five largest stocks, and it names them, account for 7.5% of the gain, which is 78% of the gain in at the time they wrote this article, which was maybe a week or so ago on
Right.
June 8th. And then they compared it. I'm trying to see if I can find it, but it basically said that compared to a few years ago, I think it was an instance where it was maybe 37% of
Mm-hmm.
the impact of the market. Now it's these top tier names are 78% of the responsible for the move of the market. And of course, they're bigger weights in the market, in the index, the way the construction of the
Right.
index.
The
So
Apples and the Amazons and the Microsofts, they have
yeah,
more
it
impact on the
Nvidia has moved into that
oh,
group as well with its this year's big move. It had been like Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet,
yeah.
Amazon, Meta, Facebook, whatever. But these things move around. Who's
Well, the price of Nvidia stock has just flown through the
skyrocketed.
roof because
Oh
of
well,
the
yeah,
AI trend here.
right.
Well, hopefully it broadens out. I mean, that's what for a healthy long-term market we need, and we need a broadening of these stocks participating in the rally to show that this is really a bull market and not just a few stocks leading the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we've got something more with Chris Boyd. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Something More with Chris Boyd and Jeff Perry, both of us from Asset Management Resources. Jeff, you wanted to start us off?
Well, I always appreciate hearing Keats Boyd of Boyd and Boyd PC, your brother and well-known estate planning attorney here on Cape Cod. And during that recent conversation we had with him, he's talking about all the ins and outs of estate planning, and it brought to mind that there's so many people, there's ads on TV, there's internet ads of do-it-yourself estate planning, and while
Out of a
that,
box kind of a thing.
right, yeah, go to this website, pay us $89, and you get your estate plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always associate legal work and medical work together and financial planning. All these advisors that people should consider having is, sometimes it works out fine to do it yourself and sometimes it doesn't. And when Keats was talking about healthcare proxies, living wills, and powers of attorney specifically, and having those, whoever you name is, say, your power of attorney, having these obligations and these powers, these rights to act in your place if you can't, for example.
Right.
And I came across, when I was practicing law, an individual who came to me because they were told that the power of attorney they had did not give them the power that they were looking to exercise, specifically the sale of some property. So kind of a buyer beware thing, because if you rely on these documents that are prepared to be good for everyone in the world, right? Not you specifically, not your individual circumstances, you can find that when you need those documents the most, say when you have a loved one who is incapacitated, that you may not actually have the powers that you actually need, whether it be a power of attorney, whether it be healthcare proxy, whether it be a will or a trust. It's sometimes they work out fine, but when they don't, it gets very complicated and very expensive.
Yeah, it can be more costly to go on the cheap sometimes.
That's right.
I forget it was my dad or Keats who told us a story of someone who did their own estate plan. They made it themselves.
Fully legal if you meet the requirements.
Yeah. They created a trust, and it turned out that because they hadn't included some language in there,
right,
it was irrevocable. And there was, I forget the details, but it's something like they hadn't included a successor trustee or something. It was like, it was something vital,
right.
And so you can end up, with something that you may say, this is too expensive. And I think a lot of times people look at the trusts that are created and say, oh, it's boilerplate because it's lengthy and there's a lot of things, and there's things in there that go, that doesn't really apply to me.
It might.
And that's exactly where I was going with it. It may not today, but there could be something that may.
Right.
Things change. And so they have maybe included a lot of the contingencies of all these possibilities that they want to make sure that you have the flexibility and freedom.
There's reasons for all those pages. Yeah.
Yeah. So in any case,
buyer beware, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's like I can put my symptoms into WebMD and get a diagnosis, but do I really want to rely on that?
Yeah, it may cause you more anxiety than it actually.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
so it's to your point, it's worth the investment. And Keats mentioned that they give a complimentary consultation to individuals, so it doesn't cost you upfront money to sit down, make an appointment, and talk with them to see. I mean, he's an ethical guy. He's got a very successful practice. If he's not the right guy for you, he's going to tell you that. So right. It makes sense to consult with professionals, whether that be a physician, an attorney, a financial advisor. There are those times when it pays to have professional advice from people who are doing this each and every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you made the example of the medical professional. That's probably the most obvious. You want someone who's really good at what they do. When your health is dependent on, my dad had Keats and Dad had a campaign one time when they were doing seminars, and they had a person with a parachute that they were trying to open while they were falling to the earth.
First time,
yeah. And it was one of these things where, like a parachute, your estate plan only has to work once.
That's right.
It has to work right.
It's going to work or it's not.
It's not. You know what I mean? It's a good visual to kind of convey that.
It is. Yeah.
So anyway, very good. One other thing I'll mention while we're talking about things, I want to remind everyone that, look, if you need help along the way, obviously, Keats can be a great resource for your estate planning. Asset Management Resources is here. We have a team of advisors and a great group of people that if you need assistance when it comes to your financial planning or portfolio management, that's what we do. That's our day-to-day. We help people, primarily people who are getting ready for or are already in retirement. So if you're dealing with any of those kind of dynamics, we can probably be a good resource. When you see the same kinds of clientele frequently enough, you recognize a lot of the same issues, and it does help you to know how to navigate them, and also sometimes maybe to ask the questions, to probe a little bit, that cause people to maybe rethink things a little bit in a way that I find. I was talking with people the other day, and plenty of wealth, but it was tied up in ways with illiquid investments. And, we get trapped in our mindset of this is how it has to be done because it's what we've been doing. And sometimes an outside view can bring to it a different perspective that says, why are you doing it that way? maybe there's another way. Have you considered doing this or whatever it might be, or probe a little bit to draw them out of that predefined mindset, that
Absolutely.
can
Those
be
questions
helpful,
can be very
challenge the
probing.
perspective a little bit. And sometimes we need to just reimagine our thinking.
That's right. Taking a second opinion is always a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in any case, we can transition. I know we were also going to talk about other things. Oh, before we talk about a couple other Father's Day advice things, did I offer? I wanted to make sure to mention to people that if you need help, reach out to us. We can be that second opinion for you. So you can always reach us through our website, amrfinancial.com, or give us a call, 508-771-8900. Okay.
We should also remind people that we recently had a seminar that is now available as a webinar on issues of Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. We had a great seminar, like we did in person, which is fun, which I haven't done as much of, but Kathy Ingersoll, our marketing director, was able to record the event as well. So it is posted as a webinar on our website, right on the front page, easy to find. Incidentally, Jeff, we keep past webinars on our website and through our YouTube channels.
Right.
So if you find that, you might want to dig through some of those, pick up some good tidbits, whether it's about the markets or whether it's about other financial planning related topics. Can be a variety of things. I went back to one. I was telling some clients about one of the presentations we had was regarding, they called it an ethical will or a legacy letter. It's one of our early webinars that we did for a financial planning topic. A great guest. We often think about estate planning in terms of passing on wealth and material things.
Right.
But it's also important to think about an estate plan that thinks about values and
lessons,
memories,
right?
life lessons.
Right.
So the legacy letter, the ethical will, that's one of those webinars. And that kind of ties into what we were going to talk about for a couple of more minutes in this segment. Just before we wind down, any good tidbits for advice on Father's Day advice?
Well, I certainly remember one because I was just telling it to my granddaughter who, Faith, people know her. I talk about her all the time, and people who follow me know I love her like crazy. So she's turning 16 at the end of July, which means everybody knows what I'm going to say. She's going to be driving.
Yeah.
And so I told her this past week a story that happened to me, and it's a life lesson that my grandfather, who was my de facto father, I lived in his home, taught me when I was 16. He was a mechanic, and we bought a Dodge Charger for my car, which was a dream of mine, Dukes of Hazzard days, And we fixed it up together before I was turning 16 and all that, and made it beautiful. Well, like many young people, I drove irresponsibly, and I hit a curb, like with the side of the car. It was more than hitting a curb.
We'll call it a curb.
It was a curb, but it did a lot of damage to the car.
Yeah.
And so I, had it towed home and all this. And I asked my grandfather if he would help me fix it. And he said, of course I would. I'll help you fix it in 6 months. Get back on the bus. So, sometimes the lessons that we learn are a form of discipline, right?
Yeah.
He made me feel the error of my ways for 6 months by, I'm sure he didn't enjoy doing that. As a parent, sometimes we discipline our children, or we teach them hard lessons through tough love.
The importance of the lesson that actions have consequences.
That's right. And I still remember it. And so I'm trying to use that as a way to
share that
legacy of my grandfather, and the lesson through faith that there are consequences for behavior, and driving's a big responsibility.
And be prudent.
And I think they're more valuable, those lessons, when they're in the form of stories than just say, don't drive, don't get in trouble,
Right. So true.
Right?
True.
So that's on this Father's Day, I'm going to be thinking of my grandfather quite a bit. And that's just one of the many wonderful, then painful.
Yeah, it's hard at the time, but
memories. How about you?
Thanks for sharing that. You know what? We're actually out of time, so we gotta wrap it up. I'll try to save some life lessons for another time. How about?
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. If you need help with your financial planning or portfolio management, reach out to Asset Management Resources, amrfinancial.com. Until next time, keep striving for something more.
You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd, Financial Talk Show.
Asset Management Resources, LLC, and J. Christopher Boyd, CFP, provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is in the nature of general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. AMR, LLC cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.